Hey everybody, Moonbase Alpha, thanks for joining me. So we're looking at a pretty cool pistol today. This is something that is kind of special. Saw this announced on Sig Sauer's Facebook page and I went over and picked one up. This is a limited edition Sig P229. It's called the Blue Piranha, and this thing is just magnificent. Now, first off, let's be completely clear. This is a range pistol for me. I think the finish is a little too delicate. Likewise, it doesn't have a lot of grip on the frame, or on the slide rather. It's really hard to pull this back with any meaningful amount of traction. When they polish these off to do the nitride coating, it basically removes some of the material on the edges of the serrations up here, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to manipulate them. It is a 15+1 capacity handgun. Double single action on it. This looks like the same magazine that they're using for the Sig Pro, but it's got a different base plate on it. So I think the Sig Pros, or the 2022s, SP 2022s, are running a slightly different modified version of this same magazine. This is for the P229-1. By the way, if you're curious about P229s, there are a couple different versions. Older ones actually have a 13 round capacity. This has got a 15 round. And as far as I know, this is basically a Sig 229E2 as well. The mags that'll fit that will fit this. This comes complete with a set of Hogue Piranha G10 grips on it, they're actually pretty expensive grips. They run about $115, $120 from Hogue, and they're very high quality. G10, for those of you who don't know, is actually a fiberglass material. It is basically woven into mats and then set with a type of thermoset resin, and it's very strong. G10 is extremely strong. It is used commonly in pocket knives, and this stuff is just really tough. It will not rust. It will not tarnish over time. It's actually very scratch resistant. In fact, there's not really a good way to scratch G10. It's very grind proof. It's just a fantastic material. And oh, by the way, it's also pretty much impervious to heat transfer, so you never get hot grips, which is kind of nice. And this stuff is very grippy. This is Hogue's version of this particular G10 material. Is milled very nicely. It takes a very nice, very aggressive stippling. It's really pretty nice. And it is a milled billet, which is pretty cool. So this is actually a pretty thick piece of, it looks like about 1/2 inch G10 that they milled into this one. Well, it's really actually two shells on here that come together. Piece of grip here. All the screws here, so the screws for the grip, the hammer, and the trigger are all coated in this titanium nitride that's got a really just beautiful polished blue look to it. Let me give you just a macro here so you see exactly what we're looking at. And it is absolutely gorgeous. Now, of course, glare, oh my gosh, this thing glare-tastic, but it is absolutely beautiful. Now, there's some hues in here, some little hues of purple towards some of the edges and whatnot, but it's overall, deep blue, and it's just beautiful. I think the color's coming through pretty well on the camera. Looks great. You do get a 1913 rail on this. Now, the P229, just in general, by the way, is a modified P228. What they did was, back in the 90s when the 40 Smith & Wesson came on the scene, they realized pretty quick that the 228 just wasn't really adequate for standing up to the pressure and the battering that 40 Smith & Wesson can put on these guns. And when Sig announced the 357 Sig, they started developing a new gun, a double stack that could take the existing technology of their compact guns and kind of put it into a more durable package. So the 229 is basically an Exeter, New Hampshire developed gun. This is an American Sig, and they basically developed this to take the increased battering that 40 and 357 Sig puts on these guns. Now, this one's chambered in 9mm, and they do come in 9x19 parabellum, which is probably overall, I think, for this type of gun, being a range pistol, kind of the smart chambering for them. I wouldn't have put this in 357 Sig, but it's would have been okay in 40, I think. But in my opinion, the 9mm makes a lot of sense. These do have nitron coated barrels on them, which are pretty thick. I don't know if you want to take a look at the barrel here. Let me just show you this barrel. Of course, takedown's standard Sig Sauer. Here's the frame, and it is basically full-length frame rails, which is really nice. You got a nice ejector on there. All the trigger linkage is super nicely polished. It's greased up very well from SIG. You've got a steel locking block in here for reinforcement that also locks onto the takedown lever. And of course the double single action, which is all the workings and whatnot are up in there. But the barrel, we've got a fairly, not super strong recoil spring or anything like that. It's not captive. But it is a coil spring, which is really nice. The coil spring, I think, really makes a lot of difference. Here's your barrel. You can see how thick the barrel hood is. I mean, it's very, very thick. And that's, of course, to deal with the 40 Smith & Wesson and 357 SIG. Here's the inside. You can see actually kind of an interesting coloration there. This is from the oxidization of the titanium nitride on there, which is pretty nice. Everything on the inside is very nicely polished. There's your passive firing pin blocker. Big, massive extractor on this thing. I mean, this is a gun that's built like a tank. Even though it's a range pistol, this thing is built to survive some major rounds counts from very, very powerful pistol cartridges. Well, I mean, as far as pistol cartridges go, 40 and 357 SIG are not necessarily the most powerful in the world, but they certainly are a little bit rougher on guns than 9mm. So let's shoot it a little bit. You know, I've got a magazine full of 9mm FMJs here, and I think we want to shoot it just a little bit, give you kind of an idea of what it looks like when it's firing. And yeah, it's just a fantastic pistol overall, though. Really, really liking this gun so far. And here in the sort of hazy light in the underbrush, underneath the canopy of trees here, this blue is just ghostly. It's ethereal. Absolutely beautiful the way that it's polished and shimmering. I love this finish. It's awesome. This gun incidentally does have SIG Light night sights on it, which are really, really nice. The hammer is absolutely beautiful. The whole gun, the trigger, just phenomenal. The double single action trigger, I've already kind of dry fired it a little bit and put a few rounds through this gun. But this thing is just a phenomenal shooter. So I'm going to go ahead and rack the slide, and we're going to have a little bit of fun firing this pistol. Now we'll take the quick look at the double action. Super manageable. There's slide lock. So shooting impressions on this gun are very positive. This pistol is extremely controllable. SIGs have got a little bit higher bore axis, so it has just a little bit of muzzle flip to it, but it's really not bad. Granted, you can see some oil and carbon and whatnot building up at the top of the slide here, or the top of the barrel hood. But generally, SIGs sometimes will rub this area raw just because of the way that they are a little bit loose when the slide is unlocked. But it seems like that nitride coating is actually holding up pretty well. Really glad that SIG has started doing that on that nitron coating on the top of the barrel hood instead of polishing those off like they used to. We've got an old P229 that is in 45 ACP, and it, you know, from day one looked kind of ratty because of the way that they slide in the top of the barrel rub. But overall, it's a fantastic gun. I just cannot say enough great things about this. Like I said, I would not conceal carry this pistol just simply because of the finish and also the lack of grip. That is the one big complaint that I have. The serrations on both the front and the back are pretty much useless just because of the way that this coating has been done. But other than that, the thing is absolutely gorgeous. It's a beautiful handgun. And if you can find one of these things, they are going to be limited edition, and I guarantee you this is going to be a sought-after version of the P229. This is the blue Piranha. They're only making 500 of these, and I hope that SIG continues to do these. Now, my input here, SIG does some black coated nitron finishes. I know because I have one that's actually an engraved P226. I really, really hope they take this nitride finish, they do a gray or a black coated frame, or I'm sorry, slide. I would love to see a polished stainless steel barrel on it, a Cerakote gray frame on this thing, and I'd really love to see some of Hogue's G Mascus red and gray grips on here with the same Piranha finish. Would be absolutely freaking killer. And if you can do a red coated nitride, or if that's possible, red for the screws and the trigger and whatnot, or black, you know, I think would look still pretty sick. But that gray and black and red contrast I think would look really great. But this blue Piranha is absolutely phenomenal. Just my 2 cents on any other further special editions. But the P229 blue Piranha. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you like the video, please subscribe to my channel, Moonbase Alpha, and I'll see you later. Bye.